25 years ago, the brutal murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman led to the arrest of O.J. Simpson and what was called the trial of the century. O.J. was acquitted at his criminal trial, but ever since, Ron Goldman's sister, Kim Goldman, has made it her never-ending mission to seek justice for her brother. She's doing so now with her new podcast, Confronting O.J. Simpson.
I love my son dearly.
We're gonna miss him a lot.
And we'll miss him.
But confronting this part of my life is something I still need to do. I want to confront the fear, the grief, the anger, the loss, the shame.
Kim joins us today as she digs deep into the vicious crime that changed her life, her family's life, forever. It's nice to see you, Kim.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
It was 25 years ago today that O.J. was supposed to turn himself in and instead went on that bizarre 75-mile slow-speed chase in his white Ford Bronco with his pal Al Cowlings in the driver's seat.
Yep.
Do you remember where you were, what you were thinking?
I was sitting at my dad's house in Agoura, California. We were on the couch, and the news broke that well, actually, we were watching the whole day because I remember he was supposed to turn himself in, so we were watching all the news conferences. And then I forget which newscast it was that broke that they saw him on the freeway, and then we were planted on our couch watching. I joke that I don't think I ever went to the bathroom during that time period. I didn't want to miss anything, but we had a house full of people, and everybody was yelling that they wished that he would just pull the trigger. But that's not what my dad and I wanted. We wanted to go to trial.
You know, when you look back at those videos, you see people in different communities yelling support of him, right? Support for him, go Juice, go O.J., unfurling banners. You probably didn't realize then that that was a foreshadowing of some of the sentiment that would be in those communities during the trial.
Yeah, I was living in San Francisco when my brother died, and we grew up in Chicago, so I had a very short period of time that I was living in LA. I had no idea who he was. I wasn't a football fan. I probably saw the movie but never identified him as someone in it. So I didn't have any idea what we were up against. I didn't understand the fascination. I didn't understand the celebrity. Nothing. So we were in for a true shell shock.
Tell people the kinds of people you're talking to on your podcast.
We went to Chris Darden and Marcia Clark and Bill Hodgman, who were the lead prosecutors. Tom Lang, he was the lead detective. We have three witnesses, Cato Kalin, Jill Shively, who was never an actual witness in the criminal case, and Pablo Fenvez, a couple of jurors, a couple of experts.
What is it the jurors told you that confirmed what you had always suspected?
That their deliberation was a farce, that they confirmed that they had already made up their minds, that they knew what the verdict was going to be, and that they pulled just a random piece of testimony so they could make it look as if they were working.
I don't know if people realize the racial tension that was in the city at that time. This was after the Rodney King beatings, the acquittal of the white officers, the riots.
Right.
You think it's bad now, it was really bad then. And a poll at the time showed that 75% of white people believed that O.J. Simpson was guilty. But 80% of the African-American community believed he was innocent and that he was framed. That's what they told you.
Yeah, well, one of the other jurors confirmed that belief also, is that he felt that the LAPD, he doesn't really know which way, but he sort of thinks that they framed a guilty person, that they were trying to plant evidence to make him more guilty. In the same breath as he was calling them bungling cops. And so I'm confused how you can be super smart to frame somebody, but then stupid enough to screw it all up. But that's what he believed. He believed in the conspiracy, and they basically said that it was retribution for past wrongs.
You really and truly took the question out of my mouth. Could both things be true? Could O.J. Simpson be guilty and the cops have mishandled, whether purposely or not purposely, evidence?
Mishandling is different than planting of evidence, and this juror believes that it was planted. He absolutely subscribes to that theory. I don't. There's a majority of people that don't. There's no evidence to that. I understand floating of theories. That's what the defense did very successfully, and it's unfortunate that it was bought into by the jury.
There were decisions made about this case. One, that he would be tried downtown rather than on the West Side, which would have been the natural place for him to be tried. And the West Side really and truly would have been a jury of his peers.
Right.
How do you feel about that decision now?
Well, I asked Marcia Clark about that in the podcast, and she clarified for me why it was moved downtown, and she told me that in Santa Monica that they only had a couple of courtrooms, and so had they had this big case, it would have clogged up the system. They wouldn't have been able to handle it. So all of their big cases were moved downtown. I don't know. Alternatively, you look back and think if it was in Santa Monica and it was a jury of his peers, that would have been a racial discussion too, because it's just the white people got it wrong and it was a black man, and so I don't think we would have been successful in either place.
Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden, there were other people who had more experience in these particular kinds of cases, but do you feel comfortable at this point saying that perhaps a different team of prosecutors would have had a different outcome?
No. I think that Marcia and Chris did the best that they could under the circumstances. I think there was a mountain of evidence that no matter who put that case on, I think the result probably would have been the same, because we were up against celebrity, race, money, and coming off of, like you said, the riots. I don't know that anybody else would have been able to, and quite frankly, 25 years later, I can't place my blame on the two people that were the only ones in there fighting for my brother. And Nicole.
Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown.
In the civil trial, he was found responsible. I remember you cheering when that happened. Ordered to pay $33 million. You've seen 2 pennies.
Yeah.
And he lives off of his pension, which is untouchable, pension from SAG-AFTRA and pension from the NFL.
Right.
Plays a lot of golf. But he did go to prison. He did go to prison for kidnapping, assault, conspiracy, robbery with a deadly weapon. You wrote to him.
I did. I wrote a book a handful of years ago called Can't Forgive, and it was important for me to sort of shrink him and keep him more manageable, because he was taking up so much space in my brain. And seeing him behind bars, I thought would have helped me do that, seeing him shackled to a desk and me being the one to walk away. And so I wrote to him a couple times. I spoke to one of his attorneys, and we got close, but I wasn't willing to lie about the meeting.
He wanted you to sign a non-disclosure form.
And I wasn't willing to do that.
Father's Day. Your father, Fred, I can't help but think of him.
Yeah.
Hard day, always for him,
Always.
right? He's been very candid, though. We have a little bit of sound from his conversation with you on your podcast.
I picked up the phone, and they said, "This is the LA coroner's office." And I said, "Why would you be calling me?" And she said, "Did you hear on the news today about Nicole Brown being murdered?" And I said, "What does that have to do with me?" And she said, Your son was the other victim." I walked over to the patio door and I looked out into the backyard, and I just found myself staring and screaming at the same time.
Your podcast reminding us all of the story, the pain, the crime. It seems to have maybe affected O.J. Simpson. He started a Twitter account 3 days ago.
Read all my thoughts and opinions on just about everything. Now, there's a lot of fake O.J. accounts out there, so this one, at the real OJ32, is the only official one. So this should be a lot of fun. I got a little getting even to do.
It's par for the course. When we published If I Did It a handful of years ago, which was his hypothetical confession, that day he broke into the Vegas hotel room and committed all those crimes that you spoke about. I don't know that it's a coincidence that the day that my podcast got released and how outspoken that my dad and I have been and all the pressure that we've been putting on, that he suddenly has a Twitter account within 2 days of the observation of Ron and Nicole being killed. And the first thing he says is he's got something to get even about. I don't know. I was jarring. It's upsetting, but it is what it is. And if he's got something to say, I welcome him to come to my show and talk to me about it.
Is he the one person that you haven't had on that you would like to have on?
You know, as I say it, I say I want to talk to him. I don't know what the heck I want to say, but
What would the first question be?
you know, Lisa, it's a visual for me, to be honest with you. It becomes more about making sure he knows he didn't break me, making sure that he knows that he didn't take everything from me. He took one of the most important things from me, but I didn't fall apart. I'm not a mess of a human. I'm actually doing pretty good in my life. I'm living with grief and loss and trauma, and I think I'm doing okay. I think there's a part of me that wants to make sure that he knows that he didn't get the best parts of me. If a couple F-bombs got dropped, if a couple of unsavory things were said, I don't think I would be opposed to that, but I don't think that anything would impact him, and nothing that he would say to me would make a difference. I don't have questions. But that's here with just me and you. I don't know if given the opportunity and in the same room, I don't know what would happen.
Kim, always hate seeing you under these circumstances, but I am glad to see you, and please give your father our best.
I will. Thank you, Lisa.
You can listen to Kim's podcast, Confronting O.J. Simpson, on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify.